Hello. So this evening, we're going to talk about awareness, judgment, courage, and compassion. So this is the first part of the wholehearted living intro. In 2022, I will have an entire program that will go through it much more in depth with practices and different things to focus on during the week as you practice each of these awareness aspects. So each week we'll cover a different topic. We will go a little bit more in depth in the program in 2022. So starting with awareness. So how we interact, how we speak, how we act towards people is really important. And we want to think of thought, word, and deed. So thought, word, and action. How do we think about people? How do we how do we say things? How do we use words to either support or to cut down people around us? And then deed, so action. What is our action steps? Do we take positive action steps? Do we not take any action when maybe we should? So being aware of those things. So we want to make sure that we know that our thoughts are powerful, our words are powerful, our actions are powerful. When we do these things in alignment with proper energy management, really. And I talk about that in the four pillars of Ayurveda, but proper energy management. So being able to use our energy properly to be able to continue that force forward that is more joyful, more compassionate, more love, in a more loving way, in a more supportive way, with less judgment. Recognizing when we make nasty comments. So we make harsh jokes or sarcasm. So I'm a big person on, I don't think that sarcasm is all that healthy. So there is healthy bantering and there is healthy wit. So wit is very different than sarcasm. So sarcasm usually has kind of a negative jab to it and feels a little bit more like bullying, versus when you talk about wit is a sly remark that has a little edge to it. And wit is a lot of fun. I love people who have a really firm grasp on wit, because it takes a certain intelligence, it takes a certain character to be able to do it, because some people do it very well. I think sarcasm is just a lack of creativity, but that's my opinion towards that, because I feel that sarcasm is a little more passive aggressive. And passive aggressive behavior. So passive aggressive behavior is definitely not a positive thing. It doesn't work toward compassion and love. It works towards judgment and creating imbalance, creating more distrust, really. So when people are passive aggressive, it just doesn't feel comfortable. And at first you might not realize what's going on, and then you see more and more of it, or patterns that start to evolve from this. And then going into being more aware. So being more soft and receptive with things that are going on. So look at how, when you're in a situation, when you're in a situation in your life, how do you react? Do you have a tendency to blow up, to get really like heated up on the inside, to melt down? Or do you have a tendency to go, okay, I'm going to step back and be aware of how I feel and what situation's really going on? And are you able to ask like important questions to be able to get a little more dialogue around it, especially if it's something that you're maybe making your own twist on versus what's actually going on, like doing more research or finding more information out about it. Just being able to slow down and be able to respond in a proper way. So energy is really contagious. So think of energy as something that, like electrical energy, right? So strong energies are going to give us a big shock. Little energies are going to give us less of a shock. But then there's positive and there's negative type energies. So we have the positive energies that when we get that little boost, so let's say we're in the grocery store and somebody says, hey, I like your shoes. Where'd you get them? Well, it's not a huge deal, but that little bit of positivity is like, oh, I got them when I was da-da-da-da, and there might be a story that comes of it. But also the negative that goes along with that. So if we're thinking, oh my gosh, those shoes are so ugly, like, oh my, why would somebody wear something like that? Even the thought process, that energy can be transmitted. Or in the case of like sarcasm or bullying, that negative energy can really block the positive energy, can really block that energy to be able to grow and evolve and create more of a depth or a debt. or a decline. So really connecting and being able to understand how your words, your actions, your thoughts really play a part in things. I had a little quote from one of my teachers, and it says, "Peace does not mean we are passive and let things happen to us. We must center ourselves in truth, respond calmly and directly. Anger is reactive and unproductive. Peaceful intention and action creates positive change." So look at that in your life. Do you tend to react, anger, frustration, or do you tend to pull back and go, what is the bigger picture here? So building the foundation of peace, love, and compassion. So being able to build a foundation of peace, love, and compassion takes a lot of practice, because we don't realize sometimes how much we judge things, how much we judge people, until we can take a look at our words and really reflect on them and see how we are reacting to certain things that maybe don't mean a whole lot. And there's some people that'll just kind of poke at you a little bit. So there's one thing that people are poking at you to be able to create more growth. Like, that's one thing. But you have the other side of it where people are poking at you to get a reaction, or to get a negative reaction, like really volatile type reaction, because they know they can do it. So if you know you're one of those people that gets very easily activated, in what way can you slow down and pull back and say, what's the bigger picture here? Is this person trying to activate me in some way? Or is this something positive to push me to become a better person? All right. Looking at judgment. So judgment versus discernment. So judgment is putting more of an intention in a negative way. So judging the person for what they're doing. And we do need to have some sort of judgment, but discernment's really better, because discernment is more of a comparison type. So being able to really discern the difference between things versus judging the one thing, and not having that backup of some information to be able to back that up. So being very mindful of our judgments versus our discernments, and judgment versus understanding. So looking at something from somebody else's perspective. A lot of times we look at it from our own view, or our own habits, or our own way of doing things, and we don't look at the bigger picture. So step back and look at the bigger picture of what this person might actually be doing, or why they might feel that way, or where they come from, and how it might be different than there. So when, for instance, like in Minnesota, we know it gets cold in the winter. So our cold winter is cold. And people in the South maybe don't even understand that. We also don't understand what it's like to be from the South, in the South our whole life, and then have 30 degrees, which would be extremely cold for them. For us, that's a pretty nice winter day. That's a very, very nice winter day. So looking at that and being able to discern from their point of view. So really looking at the bigger picture and saying, oh, I can see how maybe they wouldn't be able to understand how it feels to be in 20 below, because 30 is kind of their cutoff point, where 20 below is kind of our cutoff point. Well, we get colder than that sometimes, but it just gives you an idea. So not judging people. So it's to really understanding your intentions and understanding your thoughts, the passion, and then the action. So the steps you're taking to be able to really make the right decision, to make an honest decision. And then looking into love and compassion, and seeing that it takes practice to be able to be true love. And true love doesn't mean always on the external. So really working on internal true love, working on our connection with ourselves, listening to how we feel, and not judging ourselves either. So for instance, I have times in my life, and I had one just recently, where I go down that negative spiral, and it happens fast, and I spiral down. Luckily, I'm able to discern and not judge as much as I used to. So I would find myself judging myself and telling myself, oh man, you just really don't know what you're doing, and you're not getting enough work done, and you're not enough. Like that's my big label, is you're not enough. And in reality, I'm doing a lot. It just looks a little different than what it used to be. It used to be that I was in front of people, and now it's a lot of recording and then submitting it out into the social medias and stuff like that on the website. So it's a little bit different outlook, but it has a lot of the same results because I'm still going to be able to reach out to people and be able to hopefully inspire them to do things differently also. But I've struggled with it still, is judging myself, but I'm working more toward, okay, how can I discern the difference and realize that this isn't the truth and that this is the truth. And the truth is I'm making progress. It just looks very different. It doesn't have as concrete of an answer as what it used to have when I could see more people coming to me. Now it's a little bit more loose. So understanding love and loving kindness, compassion, empathy. So empathy is something that can be very misunderstood. I know I have misunderstood empathy quite a bit in the past. I understand it much better now. Empathy is when you actually go into another person's shoes. And you might not understand exactly what they're going through, but most of us have lost something in our lives, like something has passed away or something has changed, or we've had life changes. Some of us had a lot of them, and some of us have had a few of them. And eventually we'll all have, death and change of life or extreme changes in our life. And we can all understand that from our point of view, but be able to step in somebody else's shoes versus saying, oh, I'm sorry, and not really meaning it. So being sorry or having sympathy can be a little more superficial and kind of just a smear over the top, where empathy is really bringing into the situation loving kindness and saying, hey, I understand. Is there anything that, that I can do to be able to support you? And usually it's just holding space for the person. So understanding the difference between judging. So judging would be in that category of trying to fix or trying to alter or trying to change the situation. And a lot of times when people are in that, it's not necessarily that they need the situation changed. They just need somebody to listen to them. I mean, how many of us nowadays really just want somebody to listen when we're struggling? I know for me, if I can talk to somebody and talk out my situation that's going through my head, that is far more effective than somebody trying to tell me what to do. And in most cases, it doesn't work for me at all, and I will completely shut down. So if somebody's trying to fix me, I'm just like, no, this isn't working. You're not the right person to talk to. And I probably won't tell that person anything as far as my deeper feelings or something like that. So really being mindful in our own practice when we're listening to somebody to really listen to that person. Because if we're distracted with our phone or if we're thinking about what we're going to say next, that's not truly being present to the person. So true love, compassion, empathy means that we're sitting with that person in the space that they're in right now, even if we don't completely understand the situation, because we can't truly be in their shoes, but we might have had a similar situation where we can say, I know what I felt like then, and I wish I would have had this at that time. When I was mourning some deaths in my family, it was just nice to have a friend that would just sit with me and listen and not say, oh, it's going to be okay, or it'll be, I don't need to hear that. I know it will be, but what I needed to hear is nothing. Just sit with me and say, yep, that sucks. So realizing where you're at. So listen to your speech. Listen to how you try to either fix somebody or support somebody. And then we will look at how powerlessness plays a part in all of this. So a lot of times when we feel that we are not able to work through things in our own life, when we feel that we are struggling and we are, when we can't seem to get a grasp on our own life, we try to fix somebody else's life. So that feeling of powerlessness, we might even start to be more aggressive, like externally aggressive. We might shut down. So everybody deals with stress or deals with their own issues in a different way. Some people are going to be more external and some people are going to be more internal, just like extroverts and introverts, right? We have the option of the extrovert and the introvert. So we can externally react, or we can internally react by pulling back or by completely disconnecting from the situation. So when we think of powerlessness, we really want to look at how our fear plays a part in that. So is our fear controlling our ability to be able to love ourselves, to be able to really be there and support other people. Also, our powerlessness will show up as trying to control somebody else's situation. So if we're listening to a friend that's going through a process and we constantly want to try to fix them, what we're actually doing is we're saying that we don't trust their ability to be able to work on themselves. We don't trust them with their own life, and we have a better option for that. So really looking at yourself and saying, am I trying to fix everybody in my life? Or am I really sitting there going, yep, that sucks. That sucks. And just being there with them. And it's hard to do, especially when you've never did that before, when you've never truly sat with anybody, when you feel like your mind is trying to fix them. I've experienced that in dating and in relationships, that often when I get in my little downward spiral, the person that I'm with will try to fix me. And I have to look at them and go, don't try to fix me right now. That's not what I need. I need you to hold me and let me cry, because that will help me get through the process of my sketchiness, my mind going into the spiral. For me to be able to talk my way through it and talk my way out of it, it's much more beneficial than you telling me it's going to be okay, or you'll feel better tomorrow. That just doesn't work for me. And everybody's a little bit different, but in most cases, that's going to be the case, that we really just want to be held in the space that we're in right now. Like when I'm in that spiral, it's not necessarily that I want to feel better. It's like, I want to express that. So I have the tools to be able to get out of there myself. So being able to have an understanding that we want to help people, but sometimes helping people or trying to fix them is actually going to keep them from their growth process to be able to get out of that hole the next time when maybe you're not around. So being mindful of that kind of stuff. So this is just a basics of what we're going to be covering in the next 10 weeks. So this is the first part. The first part was awareness, judgment, courage, and compassion. And these things are just to create more awareness around what's going on. So in 2022, I will have a full program on that, where you'll have homework assignments and things to be able to work on during the week. And also there'll be another version. So there'll be the very standard version that is self-work type stuff. And then there'll be a second version that's more Christian based, and it'll actually go into more detail with how to use scripture in there. So I've got two different options, and the one will be very standard, and the one will be more toward practice and how to build a spiritual practice along with that. Not saying that the other one won't, because working on this stuff definitely builds a spiritual practice, whether it's Christian or not. One will be, one will not be. So just to kind of give you a basics on that. And what we're doing is we're just building a depth of character. So really building ourselves in who we are so that we can live a more joyful life. Too often we search for happiness, and happiness in stuff, in people, in other things, versus finding true joy and contentment in ourselves. So being content with our life and understanding that joy is very flexible. Just because like I'm joyful doesn't mean I'm going to be all like, woo, happy and on cloud nine. It means that I might be in a downward spiral, but overall, my life is pretty joyful. Like I experience joy on a regular basis. I feel content in most parts of my life, even if I might have a little glitch every once in a while. But really being able to anchor yourself in joy and contentment versus searching for happiness. Searching for happiness is where fear and disconnect happens, because there's so much that can go wrong in that, versus finding our inner connection with our spiritual practice and with ourselves to be able to really feel that sense of stillness, because we can only find stillness in ourself and our connection with our spiritual practice. And if we search for it in external parts of our life, we'll never feel filled, because there's always more. There's always going to be the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And that can go into so many aspects. So, looking for more in life, looking for more stuff. That's the easiest one to be able to do. Keeping up with the Joneses, so to speak, like constantly, how can I keep up? How can I maintain? How can I keep on going and making more? But also making more money, also making having the best kids, having the best vehicle, having the the best education. And in reality is you can have all that stuff, but what are you going to do with it? So I'll leave you on that note. So here's my information. There is more information on the website, all the links. I do this on Zoom, and I also record it. And so that will be on YouTube and any other platforms that I have. So if you miss one of the lectures, they'll be available for you to be able to watch. Like I said, this is just the basics, just taking the skim off the top, and we'll go in much more depth in 2022 as the programs are developed. So we'll start in January with those. So thank you for your time. Here's my information, and I'll see you next week. Thank you.